Hello. If you're listening to this tape, well, you've found yourself in a rather unfortunate situation. Or, hopefully, you are listening to this tape before putting yourself into that extremely dangerous situation. And that unfortunate, dangerous situation would be being inside of a malfunctioning Springlock suit. Now, I'm sure you've heard all sorts of bad things about these suits, if you have heard of them. But rest assured that even though all of them are technically true, that doesn't mean that every case is the same. We can still get you out of this and get you on the path to living a full or somewhat limited existence. I know you're scared, but don't worry, it's not too late for you. Now sit back, don't move, don't breathe too heavily, and relax. And let me tell you all about these metal death traps. Let's start with the basics. Don't worry, as long as you stay still, we have plenty of time to cover everything. Chapter 1. What is a Springlock suit? A Springlock suit is an animatronic built to be worn as a suit, with most models sporting the ability to switch between functional animatronic and wearable suit with relatively minimal effort, cutting out the employee middleman you would have to hire to wear one. With just a few turns of a crank, the metal will pull aside just far enough for someone to fit snugly inside. They were bulkier than most normal mascots, with a metal endoskeleton and either a plated exterior or a padded costume suit adhered to the outside, depending on the model. These things were very popular in the 1970s, but fizzled out soon afterwards due to some technical limitations. Specifically with the durability of the spring locks. Spring locks, as the name would imply, are spring-loaded locks made to hold the suit parts in place so the wearer can get in without all the metal bits slamming back into place while they're inside. These little bits of metal are the one thing standing between you and a brand new metal skeleton. And though they are strong, they have a few weaknesses. Water, for one. Getting them wet will cause a spring lock to fail. Jarring them too much will as well. As will not oiling them regularly. Or oiling them too much, not keeping the suit in good condition, age, rust, accidentally bumping the wrong place or moving too fast, any slips or falls, anything gunking up the locks, sparks or shocks, and of course any advanced maneuvers such as trying to crouch, sit down, or flip. And when a spring lock fails, even if it's just one tiny spring lock, usually the rest follows suit, and then the suit collapses in on itself and you. And that's what we call a Springlock failure. Being stuck in a suit is not a Springlock failure, but understandably can lead to one, especially if you start panicking and try to force your way out. Do not do that. Deep breaths. Now, Marine models were a lot more stable than the Fazbear models, with the last finished suits being capable of withstanding some wetness and holding out even under severe jarring. But they didn't really reach the greater public due to the fall of MCM, the company behind them. Odds are you're in a Fazbear model. They're a lot more finicky, but these are the ones I'm familiar with, so you have an expert on your hands. Trust me, I know my stuff. My dad used to make these things. So, I am very aware of what happens during a Springlock failure. I'm going to be blunt with you, it's not pretty. Chapter 2. What you may expect during a Springlock failure. Springlock failures can occur in stages or all at once depending on what triggers them. If you have a springlock loosening up, you may hear a light tick-tick-ticking noise as the springlock unwinds itself. If you catch this fast enough, you can manually tighten the lock with a finger if you can reach it. Problem solved. But most of the time they're set off by moisture or the suit getting thumped, and it doesn't have to be a very firm thump to do it. Upon which most or all of the springlocks may fail simultaneously. All the metal being held back will rush into place. The endo will assemble directly where you are, so you will be stabbed, all through the body, by rods and spears cutting through flesh and bone so cleanly, and then locking together, crushing anything left behind. Organs burst like party balloons, blood fills the suit, and any springlocks not yet triggered are tipped and the rest rush in. One loud crunch, and done. A whole overwhelming full-body impalement. It would be incredibly painful for a moment. It goes without saying, but surviving a full-fledged springlock failure is virtually impossible. Even if you did somehow survive the initial crush, getting the suit to retract enough for you to get out would lead you to bleeding out in no time. A man once said that you would be awake, drowning in your own blood as your lungs are filled with it. That man was a fool. Most of the time, the next Springlocks go out first and snap the spinal cord, in which case you won't be feeling anything at all. He thought he was an expert. He survived one, you know. It wasn't a full Springlock failure. He weaseled his way out of it. Didn't survive the second one, though, but continued to be a pain. Took a fire to bring him down. Nothing could have survived that, well, except for me, but I had about 3 inches of plastic bear between me and the flames. But that aside. What I'm getting at is that it may not be the end. A Springlock suit failure isn't necessarily a death sentence. A full failure is, but you may have had a partial failure. You may have Springlocks that only partially enter the skin, cutting you up but still allowing survival if nothing vulnerable was sliced. Another possibility is that you have a partial failure that only involves 1 or 2 limbs. Sure, you may have a crushed and bleeding arm, but there's still a possibility of escape if you can free your other arm long enough to apply a tourniquet. We'll be covering all of these methods later, but in short, you can see why these suits were deemed as dangerous and discontinued. To no surprise, some restaurants still used them for a few years after that, but eventually the lack of ability to maintain and repair them led to more failures before they all wound up in scrap heaps or dumpsters. The last functioning Springlock suit that I'm aware of was at the now defunct Circus Baby's Pizza World. I don't know where it ended up, but likely in the garbage, like most of the trash from Babies. Don't tell her I said that. If you are not currently in a suit and are listening to this as a precaution, here's 3 handy-dandy rules to keep you safe. 1. Make sure to check the suit for any wetness or noticeable damage before you get inside. 2. Make sure to watch your step. Walk with a steady, controlled gait. And 3. Do not panic. If you hear ticking, if you get in a crowded room, if you get a feeling of impending doom, do not panic. Return to the safe room and remove the suit. And if anyone gives you problems, quit. Remember, despite what they may say, they cannot sue you for refusing to wear the suit. They can only fire you and blackball you from any Fazbear Entertainment chains, and honestly, they never do background checks anyways. They're terrible at that. But hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? Chapter 3, How to Escape a Failing Suit. Let's go through the methods of failure again and what you should do in every situation. Let's start with being stuck, but not in an actively failing suit. If it's a Fazbear model, the best thing for you to do is to contact a Fazbear technical specialist for help, either one located in the business or from the 1-800 number, 1-800-FAZBEAR, and then find a quiet room where you can wait undisturbed for them to arrive. Do not make any attempts to sit down or try to remove the suit yourself. Do not panic. Take even and controlled breaths away from the Springlocks. If the Springlocks begin to tick, then attempt to manually wind them, but otherwise do not touch. Absolutely do not touch non-ticking Springlocks, or you might make them unwind. If you become stuck in the suit due to a fall, but the Springlocks did not activate, lay prone on the floor and call for help, but not too loudly. Tell whoever finds you to call the 1-800 number, again, 1-800-FAZBEAR. Stay as still as possible. If locks start to tick, you may wind them, but do not attempt to get up on your own. If it's a Murray's model, you're pretty safe as long as you're not stuck in an area like, a parking garage or a basement, somewhere where nobody will find you. Murray's newest models are unlikely to fail, but you're unlikely to be able to feed yourself while trapped in one. The 1-800 number should still be able to help you, but some fees may apply. Now, what to do if your Springlocks are loosening during a performance? First of all, do not try to take off the suit. That will not end well. You must tighten the Springlocks first. Carefully wind the Springlock with your finger until it is no longer ticking. If it continues ticking, continue winding the Springlock manually and call for help. If the Springlock is successfully wound, continue the performance as usual. Of course, you can always go into the safe room and climb back out of the suit, but it's best to wait for a little while after resetting a lock to make sure it actually took. You don't want to be halfway out and lose a foot. In the event of a partial Springlock failure, action depends on the location. If it was a partial failure that resulted in no injury, follow the same instructions as if you were stuck in your suit. If it is a partial failure that resulted in the crushing or removal of a limb, take care to calmly apply a tourniquet to the upper section of the limb to stem blood flow. Pooling blood might set off more Springlocks if you're not careful. For tourniquets and a snap, try unplugging electrical cords, using belts, or torn pieces of tablecloths. Though know that whatever you use may be deducted from your weekly check and Springlock Failure stipend. The important part is your survival. And in the case of a full suit failure, that is very unlikely. It is very possible that you will be killed instantly, but if you aren't, don't fight it. That will just hurt more. Just take a deep breath if you can, and try to make peace with yourself. Because if you don't, you're going to have a much bigger problem than death. It's time to go over Freddy's dirty little secret, what makes the animatronic so lifelike. As covered in Tape 9, when people die near machines, the machines begin to live, and this is no different for the Springlock suits. Like I said, a Springlock failure isn't always the end. Chapter 4: Life After Death. If you die near an animatronic, that animatronic may become your body. If you die in a suit, you may become a spring-locked zombie. An animatronic, yes, but with your own skewered body trapped inside. You may think this is better because you have a part of yourself. It's not. It's so much worse. You can't blend into restaurants like typical animatronics. Your appearance and smell will always give away that something's wrong. And if you are found, you will be deconstructed. Well, I mean, sometimes you might be repurposed, but deconstruction is always on the table. Or burned. You'll be seen as a monster, even more so than we are. But that won't necessarily kill you or free you from your new body. Don't expect them to put you back together again either. It's a much more difficult existence, and a lonely one too. Sometimes we don't get to move on, but that's okay. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm going to give you some tips on living as comfortably as you can. First off, stay away from humans and heavily populated areas. You cannot stay in or near a functioning pizzeria or someone will find you. Abandoned warehouses or buildings are best, because due to the elements and your finicky body, you won't be able to live outside. You will be prone to rust already due to the decay of your body, but that is only intensified when rain or snow is involved. The makeup of a Springlock suit might make for more cracks and crevices for water to get into, and then comes the mold on the outside and in, which is very unpleasant, and then the rust, which may severely limit movement. And that's with the Springlock suits already being hard to maneuver around in. Remember, you are not a person in a suit. You are a suit with a body stuck inside, so getting yourself around won't be easy. You need to do everything in your power to keep that suit in as good of condition as possible. Especially since, unlike a typical animatronic, deconstructing yourself to replace parts or opening yourself for cleaning is just not going to happen. Those Springlocks may lock up tight, and that endo's likely stuck deep into your steadily decaying or calcifying flesh. Now there may come a time, very quickly, that you decide you no longer want to hold on to old attachments, such as, let's say, your own body. Removing the body will cut back on the smell and will likely free you from a grisly fate if you're found out. Might be able to convince a desperate entrepreneur that you're just a really dirty animatronic if there's no bones or flesh inside. The best method of going about this is to find a way to peel back your fabric suit, find a long, thin item that won't break, and just slowly start poking and maneuvering the leftovers inside. The further you get into decomposition, the easier this should get, though keep in mind that likely you won't get the bones out since they're skewered. But they will lose their smell a lot faster than mummified flesh will, and you can probably hide them well as long as you keep your mouth shut. Do that anyway, it'll hold the odors back. And you may get the idea to open the Springlocks to remove the body. Don't even try. Even if you do manage to somehow find a crank and somehow get it inside by yourself, it probably isn't going to pull those Springlocks free. Best case scenario, it results in another instant Springlock failure, which will be painful since you are the suit now. Worst case, you succeed and get yourself in suit mode. And then what? You have a corpse inside of you. You can't come out. You just lose your ability to move until you get damp enough that the locks spring back into place. And that's only in theory. I don't know if that will work. Besides, that body is actually a key part of your survival, as long as you can keep a hold of it. Or the bones. Now this is where the safe Murray suit actually becomes a huge detriment. From what I know, unlike the Fazbear Springlocks, Murrays do not have endoskeletons that fully close in, leaving them open for bodies to move around inside. Which means that you are being held firm by your own rotten body. Logic denotes that as the body rots away, it'll become harder to move, unlike in the Fazbear models where the deep-rooted metal allows for a framework even with decomposition. You might not be able to move at all in a Murray's one. Your corpse is the backbone of the Fazbear suit, but in an unsprung Murray's you may find your body decaying away, bone sliding out of place, and the suit becoming useless as you fight to puppeteer it with nothing but your eternal soul. You would be dying for a Springlock failure at that rate. The point is, if you're looking for a quick way out, that is not it. I don't recommend it. But I suppose if you really, really needed a way out, you could maybe attempt to use fire, but how you would manage that alone successfully is beyond me. My recommendation is this. As soon as you awaken and you are able to move, leave the area you are in. Do not get caught. Seek out the nearest abandoned structure, such as a closed-down diner, a derelict warehouse, or the charred remains of the old Murray's place. Or the old Freddy's place. Or the old El Chips. We've had a lot of fires. Hide away there and rest yourself while your body decays. Once it reaches prime mushiness and before mummification sets in, you can begin to try to remove as much of the flesh as you can with whatever tools you can make. This will cut back on the decomposition time and the lingering smell. Then, once your internal body is good and withered and hidden within the Springlock suit, you may be able to leave your humble abode if you wish. And maybe even seek out a business to take you in. This is very risky, but I cannot stop you. There is a 99% chance that if you're taken in by a competent pizzeria that they will reupholster you, and they will likely see your remains. What they do from there is a toss-up. They could scrap you then, but if it's a Freddy's-related establishment, then maybe they won't. They'll instead either remove your body or leave it in there and cover it up. Shockingly, the removal of your body and reupholstery is the best-case scenario, as you could potentially become a regular animatronic and get the few perks they have. And likely, nobody's going to be wearing you in this day and age. But I'm sure it can lead to some pain of its own. Just keep in mind that that's not your body anymore. This is your body, and you need the best if you want to survive. On the opposite side of the spectrum, though, if they start talking about scrapping you for parts or deconstruction, it's in your best interest to get out of there. Don't let them catch you moving, but find a way to sneak out at night and return to your safe zone. You can try again at a different location once the heat dies down. And that's it. Just keep doing that and keep pressing on. I have faith in you. But before I let you get to it, let's go through a simulation exercise. First, grab a die, a single dice. Well, actually no, you can't do that if you're in a suit. Okay, imagine a die, and the first number you can think of between 1 and 6 will be your roll. In this simulation, you will see a possible route for your Springlock failure and will have to decide on choices you would make in that situation. Ready? Let's start. It's a lovely day at your restaurant of choice. Roll your dice. If you roll a 1, you did fine. No Springlock failure. Roll again to try again or stop there. Remember, every time you climb into a Springlock suit, it is a gamble. If you roll a 2, your Springlocks are loosening. Quick, roll again. If you get an even number, you have successfully tightened the Springlocks. If you get an odd, you have failed and will trigger a full failure. If you roll a 3 or 4, you have been in a partial Springlock failure and have lost a limb. 3 and it's an arm, 4 and it's a leg. Roll again, even and you're able to successfully tourniquet and will survive. Well, likely only a limb short. Odd and your bleeding triggers a full Springlock failure. If you roll a 5 or 6, you have been in a full Springlock failure. There is nothing you can do. Roll again quickly. If you get a 6, you get a miracle and somehow survive the failure with severe lifelong afflictions. Any other number, and you do not survive. Now you have either survived your Springlock failure or did not. If you did, congratulations. If you did not, roll again. Even and you pass on into the afterlife. Odd, and you do not. And if you did not, let's enter part 2. Roll. 1, and you awaken in a well-maintained Springlock suit. 2, you awaken in an old Springlock suit with some wear. 3. You awaken in a broken and molding Springlock suit. 4. You awaken a well-maintained Murray Springlock suit. 5. You awaken an old Murray Springlock suit with some wear. 6. You awake in a broken and rusty Murray Springlock suit. Now that you know of your suit, you know what you must do. But where are you? Roll. 1 to 2, you're in a still functioning pizzeria. 3 to 4, you're in an abandoned pizzeria. 5, and you're outside in a scrapyard. 6, you're in an empty basement. Now then, you've gotten your start. Now here are a few fun, not so fun scenarios you can encounter on the road. Roll the dice twice and add up your score. If you roll a 2, you find yourself stranded out in the middle of nowhere, and it's starting to rain. The dirt is getting mucky, your suit is getting wet. You have 3 choices. Wait it out, go crawl into a tight culvert and wait it out, or maybe venture closer to a house? Is it worth the risk? Roll a 3. Your suit has broken out in a nasty infestation of cockroaches and maggots. What's the plan here? It technically won't affect your endo that much, will it? Do you try to wait it out, or do you seek out alternative methods to kill the critters hiding within? Roll a 4. Lockjaw. The Springlocks in your mouth malfunctioned and your mouth is stuck open, which means your body is exposed. Better find a way to get that covered, or closed, fast. Roll a 5. Some teens have broken into your hiding spot and are exploring and getting up to mischief. What do? Do you go and hide? Do you leave? Do you play dead, pretend to be a useless suit, and hope they ignore you? Or do you run them off yourself? Is it worth the risk? Roll a 6. You've been acquired by a collector. He seems very interested in Springlock suits, and you. He's talking about refurbishing you. That would be great, but you get a weird vibe from him. Something tells you not to trust him. Do you break out through the window when he's not there, or do you stick around and let him fix you? Do you even dare to try talking to him? It might be a bad idea. 7. You've come across a group of feral animatronics, or what's left of them. You don't know them, but they think they know you, and they're now hunting you like shuffling zombies through an empty scrapyard. You're going to have to fight for your life, or they're going to tear you limb from limb. Do you make it out? Roll an 8. You got a big tear in your chest that's exposed your metal and bone. You can probably patch it up yourself, but you're going to need supplies. Do you break into a house? A warehouse? A pizzeria? What do you use to even patch this? Is it worth borrowing fabric off of another animatronic? Roll a 9. You fell in a ditch. And it's a tight ditch, right beside the highway, and your limbs are getting stuck because they got dust all in the joints. How do you get out, or do you just accept your fate and make the ditch your new home? Roll a 10. It's Halloween. You know, if you found a way to cover up your smell, you might be able to sneak into town and hang out with real people. Well, the ones that are drunk enough to not notice the difference. Do you try it? Does it work? Here's a hint. It really depends on how smelly you are. Roll an 11. You found a phone booth and it's still working, and you found change. You could make a phone call. You could call a friend or a family member and tell them what happened to you and where you are. But should you? Do you? And finally, if you roll a 12, you've come across another person stuck in a Springlock suit. The old suit is in much worse condition than you, and he's struggling, but he seems friendly. Apparently, he knows how to remove and graft limbs, and asks if you, so young and strong, with a much more functional body than him, would be willing to spare your arm. It won't hurt, he promises, and he will help you find a new one. So, do you give the rabbit your arm? And there you go. Do this 2 more times until you have 3 scenarios. What would you do? Would you give up when you know that you can't? You must keep going. So, feel free to keep rolling and keep moving. You got this. See, a Springlock failure doesn't have to be the end of the road. It might be a new beginning. So keep that in mind, especially if there's nothing you can do to get out of this one. It's not your fault. Unless you did something silly like a split or a flip. No, it's not your fault. These are dangerous suits and it's clear why they're no longer in circulation. But if you're listening to this, you at least have a little hope left. Stay calm, follow my suggestions, and relax. The end is never truly the end. At least not in our case. Well, good luck out there. Watch your six. Come find me if you need me. And I'm so sorry.